WNST Football League season. Quarter pole is here, and I don't know if we're feeling particularly good about the Ravens this week as they head off to Oakland on the backside of yet another sort of lopsided defeat at the hands of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the infirmary continues to mount out in Owings Mills. This guy has been covering the National Football League for a long, long time. He is the exceedingly blunt journalism teacher as well as the NFL insider at BleacherReport.com. He follows up his following, I should say, is tens of thousands strong out on Twitter at Jason Cole 6'2". We welcome one of our defending champions back here to discuss on and off the field issues for the NFL. Jason, happy trails to you, man. It's been a little while since we've chatted, and I kind of wanted to get into the meat of the schedule. And at 2-0 2 weeks ago, you're feeling pretty okay about the Ravens. The last 8 quarters of football, and given what the teams look like without Yonda and Brandon Williams, we're beginning to wonder whether we're really going to have a season around here come after Halloween.
It's looking a little bit difficult. Let's just say that. You certainly haven't had any friends in the injury. And this is going on 2-3 straight years?
Oh, sure.
Where they haven't had a whole lot of luck on the injury front. So this is a problem. And I think that, look, the other question I would have is how healthy it really is, Joe Flacco. And I know that they have done, some things to say that he's all right, but every indication is that, he's not good where he's at right now. And this is a troubling situation for that team.
Well, in the offensive line to protect him. And Jason, I'll say this, and I talked to Luke at length about this, and I'll talk to people all week. It really does look like now that if he had to try to make a run for the sticks for a first down, that is something he no longer has in his arsenal no matter what. I'm not talking about outrunning a cornerback or a safety or a fast outside linebacker. I'm talking about just things we've seen him do as a younger guy and getting to the sticks, taking the hook slide, and getting a first down. I don't think he's capable of doing that right now.
No, he's not. And scrambling out of the pocket to get, say, a 3 or a 4 yard run, whatever you need to do. No, you can't move right now. And not that he was ever that kind of quarterback, but when you lose that much more, people, again, the defenses just know exactly where you're going to be. And they're going to say, okay, we're going to go right out. We're going to go right after you. We're going to chase you down at that particular spot. We will find you. And that's what's going on. There's no question about it.
Interesting when the season starts, you go to Cincinnati, you win a game, you shut out, the defense takes the ball away, the offense doesn't screw up, you feel good. Then you get Cleveland, which is a Hallmark card, everybody's feeling good at 2-0, and you're like, well, it's Jacksonville, it's a long flight, it's a morning game, and you go over there and it's 44-0, and you're looking and you say, well, there's no Yonda and there's no Williams, and now Urban's hurt. This is what happens this is why guys make $10 and $12 million to play the interior part of the offensive and defensive lines. Those guys they can't be replaced by a 7th round or an undrafted free agent or someone else's cutless guy, right?
Not easily. Let's just put it that way. I would say that you can eventually take a 5th or a 6th or a 7th round pick and make them a workable guard, but it's not going to happen right away, and it's certainly not going to get a Marshall Yanda. So you've got to have depth on the offensive line. You've got to have your stars stay healthy, because to be quite frank, nobody's got great depth around the league. You've got to hope that you keep your guys upright, and that the next level of player that you have at least can be representative. And that's not what's going on in most teams around the league.
How much do you blame the front office, Jason? I guess this team has taken 13 of their 17 first 2-day draft picks in the last 4 years and given it to defense. They really haven't done much offensively. They sort of lucked into Macklin, sort of kind of lucked into Steve Smith when they grabbed him, sort of kind of lucked into Matt Burke many years ago as well. But, other than Yonda and Flacco on that side, look, Perryman, we're now in year 3 of the nightmare. He has B, U, and S, and we're about to cross the top of the T at this point if nothing happens this year. But I don't know that anybody can be shocked that the offense isn't very good. I don't think, its ceiling was only, maybe they won't screw up, right?
Well, they did take the left tackle out of Notre Dame, right?
Sure.
I think they've invested in positions there and gone with value. And I think that the defensive bent, look, that's their strength. Like when you're not good at drafting something, sometimes you're better off finding a different place to get it, right? Like if I was Ozzie Newsome right now, I would be very careful. I'd be very hesitant about drafting any wide receiver. And this is not based just on Perriman, but your long history of drafting wide receivers early in the draft, particularly in the first round. And it's just not worked. And I would say, look, I evidently know other positions a whole lot better and have a better feel for what's going to work there. And maybe that's being too afraid, but maybe it's being wise. Okay. But look, Perriman was a critical miss on a team that had to have a wide receiver, had to have something there on offense, and those things happen. I will always come back and say this about Ozzie Newsome. If I'm going to trust anybody in this league in terms of personnel, I'm always going to trust Ozzie more than I could trust anybody else, because I think he's, if we did an analysis of his percentage of getting players who were at least good players to great players, it's much higher than the rest of the league. Yeah, much, much higher than other people who do his job. And you just play the odds over time. Now, has he missed? Of course. They all do at some point in time. If you look at, Bill Polian early in his career versus Bill Polian late in his career, things balance out an awful lot. But everything said, give me Ozzie Newsome and his crew, and I think I'll be competitive year in and year out.
He is Jason Cole, 6'2", out on Twitter, and, of course, out at BleachReport.com, covering the National Football League. All right, so let's turn this thing sideways here on the Steelers and maybe even on to the Bengals and the Browns. The Bengals and the Browns aren't making the playoffs. We know this. That would leave the Steelers and the Ravens, and at this point, the Steelers dusting the Ravens the way they did on Sunday and the direction the Ravens are trending in right now. We're about to watch these baseball playoffs, and I know you're a baseball fan. Most of these races were decided like in May. In the National League especially, you'd like to think at this point with the AFC North, it was a two-team race before the weekend. What's to stop the Steelers? And quite frankly, they didn't look particularly good. This does not look like that sort of freight train runaway Steelers team, but it looks to me like a team that's going to go maybe a little unopposed the rest of the year in this division.
It looks that way. But I'll say this, the Steelers are not playing really good football, at least in terms of what their strength is. Their strength should have been they're going to be an explosive offense, especially when you bring Bryant back to go with Brown and Bell. So they had their killer bees there along with Roethlisberger and a pretty good offensive line. And so you were expecting a team that was going to score, 28-30. And I know they got close yesterday, but that didn't look like what you're expecting. What is helping them right now is a pass defense, which has been extraordinarily good through the first 4 weeks of the season, and sort of unexpectedly good. I don't think anybody expected, given where they were in terms of their cornerbacks during preseason, that they were going to be as good as they have been. But the addition of Hayden's, covered up a lot of things. Burns has played well. And they're getting a lot, of mileage out of that defensive line. So that defense has been a whole lot better than you expected. I'm just wondering how long is that going to hold up, and when is the point where the offense is going to come around and actually perform to what they expect?
Weird quarter pole, right, Jason? New England losing again, yeah.
It's always fun. That's the beauty of this game. You get you get a team like the Bills, which you were expecting. Okay, maybe they're 1-3, and the Jets 0-4, and they've combined to win 5 games already. And I would have said, if you told me that combined those teams would win 9 games this year, I would have said play the under. They're already over halfway there, and we're a quarter of the way through the season. They're playing pretty decent football. It's crazy and it's fun. That's the joy of this whole thing.
Well, and lost in all of this are the bad news stories, and I would say the Los Angeles Chargers experiment's not working so hot, huh? I don't know what the permanent solution's going to be there, but
it's 4 games in. It's 4 games in, and they've lost 4 very close games. Like they could have beat the Dolphins with a made field goal, 1 or 2. Make 1 of 2, right? The kid doesn't do it. They had a chance to beat Denver, or at least tie that game in Denver, right? They lose a cup by 2 yesterday. I know that they got run all over by the Eagles, but that was a game that they could have flipped if their offense would play better. And same thing in the week before, Kansas City. They played them pretty tough right up until the fourth quarter when Hunt breaks the long run. So you look at this whole thing, right, and you just say, this is a team that got a late start, and they're playing like they got a late start, that like they're not ready for what they're doing. And this is always why I believe they should have gone last year, and they should have gone up to LA a year ago as soon as they got approved. They should have just said, we're marching up to LA and been the aggressor in this one, and had an aggressive mentality towards this whole LA thing. And they didn't. They tried to make it work in San Diego, and it was never going to work in San Diego, at least for what they needed. And so you've just got this sort of half-hearted effort, and that's what's showing on the field right now. And you can turn this around. You can flip it, and they have no choice because there's no alternative.
You can't go back. That's a one-way road that went northbound there, from what I can tell.
Right. San Diego's not offering anything, right? So how do you go back? And so they don't have any choice but to try and make it work in Los Angeles. But yeah, right now they're not creating a foothold. Meanwhile, the Rams are really starting to excite people, which is what happens when you play good offensive football. People get really into it. You win a few games, and people get excited. Especially you got a young, good-looking quarterback and a young, good-looking head coach. It all works together.
Well, L.A. is not the only big metropolis with an 0-4 football team. The New York Football Giants have fallen into Ben who? McAhoo? I mean, that's not going to last long there. And we talk about quarterbacks like Flacco maybe not looking all that great at this point. Certainly Eli Manning's got to be in that basket as well.
Right, but I would say that you just look one time after another, they're not helping Eli out. Like McAdoo complains a lot about, this wasn't executed, this wasn't done well. It's like, dude, your play design is terrible. Your play calling is entirely predictable, and you're asking Eli to bail you out in every single situation. And you haven't fixed an offensive line that was horrific last year and has talent. I mean, if you start out with Justin Pugh from a physical standpoint and you add in Eric Flowers from a physical standpoint, that's a couple of pretty good players, right? Now, Eric Flowers is terrible, but the reason that Eric Flowers is terrible is a mindset issue, not a physical one. I mean, I just see him make one mistake after another that looks to me like just really bad coaching. And so who's to blame for that? It's Ben McAdoo. I mean, maybe you want to take on the offensive line coach, but Ben McAdoo is responsible for what he does on his job. So to me, I'm pointing all fingers at McAdoo. The only question here is, will the Giants sort of break out of their typical way of doing business and fire a coach quickly, or will they let him simmer a little bit and try and figure it out? And usually the Giants have been very conservative and have let coaches figure out. I mean, Ray Handley was the last guy that they just ran out quickly because that one fell apart so fast.
And it doesn't feel like that long ago, but it was 35 years ago, right?
With
Handley.
With what? 25.
25. Okay. Well, I mean, you go back to Parcellian and all that stuff. Here's Jason Cole, 6'2", out on Twitter and, of course, out at Bleacher Report. Conversely, the ugliest sight in all of sports is happy Philadelphia Eagles fans. I mean, we don't see that very often, but at 3-1, they probably have something to be happy about right now. And we talk about quarterbacks and where all the Goffs are and where all the young guys are going to be. And Stafford's 3-1 now, and Cam Newton is and his squad is sort of resurrected themselves, but don't look now. The Eagles are 3-1.
No, this is a good-looking squad. I mean, and they were dominant yesterday running the ball. And again, we talk about play designs. They had really good play design. They're getting a lot of mileage out of whatever running back they put in there in a given situation, whether it's Blunt when they're going power or whether it's Smallwood, who had a big touchdown yesterday. I still worry about them defensively. I mean, I know that Barnett's a good player and they've got some other guys in there, but that secondary is challenged. Let's just say that. They got burned on a very simple deep route yesterday, and the Chargers were able to throw the ball around and stay in that game, even though the Chargers aren't incredibly talented at the wide receiver position right now. So to me, if I'm Philly, it's like I better get a lot of mileage out of Wentz, and I better get a lot of mileage out of the running game because we're going to have to cover up that defense as much as possible. They did a great job yesterday running the ball with time of possession, but they got to keep doing it.
Well, if last year was all about Dak Prescott and the Cowboys and Romo getting run off, certainly Houston and 57 points, and this kid running around almost beating the Patriots last week, although a pedestrian defensive group with Belichick right now in New England. 57 on Tennessee, Mariota hurt, Houston put their foot down. Boy, this kid can play football, not just at the collegiate level. I think we all saw that at Clemson. But this transition has been far too smooth for all the draft naysayers, I would say, right?
Yeah. I mean, but this kid's got something special to him. I mean, I really do. Now, he's going to hit some walls here somewhere along the line. But there's a quality to Deshaun Watson, a confidence and a work ethic to it. I mean, you put that all together, people like that are going to succeed. Now, how far are they going to go? We'll see. But Deshaun Watson has all the characteristics you look for in a person who's going to maximize his ability to the best of his ability. And so you put that out there and you say, I'll run with that. I'll ride with it. And I'm not saying that Tom Savage didn't have that, but Deshaun Watson has that to him, and I think that it rubs off on other people. It creates a confidence that has shown in high school, it's shown in college all the way, and it's already showing right now. Now, yesterday was an easy game to play. They were on top of Tennessee right away, and so, look, the 5 touchdowns he put up, not under the greatest duress in the world, but he did it, and he did it a week after going up into New England and doing pretty much the same kind of thing, and putting the Patriots on the mat a little bit and forcing them to make a huge play at the end of that game to win it.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Patriots and Brady, that offense is going to be strapped all year to score enough to keep up with what the defense is going to allow. That defense is a mess there, right?
Oh, yeah. They have no personnel. Look, they got their front seven's terrible. I know a lot of people are on the secondary for lack of communication yesterday and making some mistakes. That's where their talent is, okay? And, yeah, those guys have to play really, really well. But you look at, they're not getting any help in the front seven. They have no pass rush whatsoever. They don't set the edge very well against the running game. It's a nightmare. And when you're not good in the front seven in this league, it doesn't matter how good your secondary is.
Well, you draft 32nd every year, too, right? That thing is going, at some point that catches up to you, right?
But look, you can find, not yesterday, but last year, they did it. Now, they didn't do it with one pure guy. Granted, they'll move people around and find depth, but they found depth last year that gave them enough pass rush, especially in the critical game against Atlanta. I don't see that kind of personnel on the field this year. And while I think they're going to get better defensively because schematically they're going to coach those guys up, I don't see that they have guys who can make the offense accountable. Even just plain accountable. Forget about changing how the offense plays in terms of X's and O's, but I'm talking about purely and simply accountable.
Jason Cole joining us here from Bleacher Report. He is Jason Cole, 6'2", out on Twitter. All right, last thing, man. We're heading west to Oakland this week for the Ravens. I thought the Raiders were the best team in that division. Clearly, the Broncos have won some games and have had some decent play on the offensive side of the ball there. The Chiefs have been outstanding. Where are the Raiders in all of this? And, Carr taking the back injury and whatnot. This is a troubled team there, and I know they're moving to Vegas, and we've talked about that at length. And but what kind of Raiders team do we see this week?
Quickly, because I unfortunately I got to get going. But what I would say is Amari Cooper. When you draft a wide receiver that high, that guy has to change the way that that defenses play. Just like I was talking about here recently with what the Patriots don't have defenders who do that. Amari Cooper's got to be that kind of receiver. He's got to be like Julio Jones. He's got to be like Dez Bryant. He's got to be like a Michael Irvin. You just say, okay, when everything else is failing around your offense, he's got to be that guy. He has not. Certainly not the last 2 games, pretty much not the last 13 games. He has to be a dominant wide receiver, and he is not. That teams are taking away the short stuff from them. Obviously, Denver's a really talented defense. Washington, not that same level, but did the same kinds of things. And so when you have that, Amari Cooper's got to be the guy who steps up. He has not. Now they don't have Crabtree. He's banged up. The offensive line has not been able to be the kind of road graders they were a year ago. It's all kind of a mess for them at this point in time.
Well, nice to see that we'll have 2 messes getting together. Jason, always a pleasure, man. Thanks for coming on, brother.
All right. We'll talk to you later, Nestor. Be good.
You got it. Jason Cole62, the way to find him out on Twitter and at BleacherReport.com. You can find me out on the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Our morning newspaper ships digitally to your email inbox every morning at 7 a.m. That's all powered up by Planet Fitness at PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. There is a Planet Fitness right around the corner from you. Breaking news happens first on the WNST text service. That's been going on for a decade now. It is our best service. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Never spam, never crop, just good stuff. And, of course, Dennis will be here on Thursday driving you home on the SSV on WNST, heard from 3 until 5 each and every Thursday right here. I'm out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.